King Charles's coronation is just around the corner, and everybody's asking what happens during the coronation, what's going on. The questions are how many people are going to attend, what are the invitations like, what happens during the ceremony, will Harry and Meghan come to King Charles's coronation, what do we call Camilla, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to run through that tonight. We're going to go through the details of the invitation because there's a lot of hidden meaning there. And we're going to discuss a little bit about what we know so far about the coronation. So guys, I am Deanna here for Hot for History, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you royal news of the day and a little bit of, I guess, royal gossip because, of course, we don't really know what's going on exactly. A lot of it's just hearsay, but I'm really happy to be here with you to be discussing King Charles's coronation. Please do subscribe to Hot for History and share. And I do appreciate all of the thanks and the super chats and all of that you give for me. And thank you, Stacy, for coming on. I do appreciate all of the support. It's really great to see all of you coming on. Now let me know where you're from. And we're going to go through it. This is going to be a little bit detailed, especially when we talk about the invitation, because the invitation was released and the significance for the invitation was released. So there is a lot to talk about. Okay, so what do we know so far? Hold on one second. Yeah. Okay, what do we know so far? Let's get into it. Okay, so everything you want to know about the coronation so far. Not everything, almost everything. Obviously, it's still a month away. We're not going to know everything right away. But let's talk about it. So what is happening? King Charles is, the coronation is on May 6th. And people want to know all kinds of things like, why is it so late? Why is it so late after the queen died? So he became the monarch the minute his mother passed away. That's when he became the king. But now the king is about to have his actual crowning. And the UK has not had a crowning ceremony like this since it's been 70 years. So the moment that the king, that Charles will be crowned is a ceremony that he does alongside his queen, who we've been calling the queen consort up to this point. And she will be known as Queen Camilla because she is having her coronation too. And this event will, you'll see the crowns on the, on the king, and we'll talk about that. And it'll be a service that will be officiated by Justin Welby, who is the Archbishop of Canterbury. So here we go. So the coronation is known by the code Operation Golden Orb because he holds this orb. And this is kind of, I don't know, some of you may think it's a little weird, but he holds this orb because it's symbolic of him holding the globe in his hands, sort of like he's got the whole world in his hands kind of thing. There's a little more to it than that, but we're not getting into the royal regalia tonight. But it's called Operation Golden Orb, and it's going to be lavish. And yet the king keeps saying that he is scaling it back. It's very scaled back. Thank you so much, Stephen. Really appreciate the support. Thank you for that. And then the invitations, we're going to talk about the invitations in a second. And some of you are going to love it. Some of you are going to hate it because I'm going to get into real details. It's sort of like it's art history, right? So we're going to talk about that in a second. But now it says, while the global population might not be partying in pubs, while quite as much, but major interest in the royal family. I mean, it's crazy. Like in America, we're interested, right? So let's answer the questions. When is coronation day? The ceremony is going to be, of course, on May 6th. It's going to be televised. And during Queen Elizabeth, when it was televised, it was 27 million people in the UK alone. So this is going to be everywhere. Since then, the royal engagements have been more documented. Obviously, we know we have social media. It's going to be hundreds of millions of people are going to be watching this. Building on this, coronation will likely feature a number of live streams. Of course, the BBC, Sky News is going to have it live on YouTube. So I guess if we're here on YouTube, I don't know if I can simulcast it. I don't know if they let me do that. I doubt it, but I could definitely speak on it. And I've got to look at the time differences because I think it's like 10:30 in the morning or something like that, where he leaves Buckingham Palace and then comes over. So the times might be a little bit off. Now, who's expected to attend? Hold on a second. Let me look at the question. I don't think Charles and Camilla as individuals and as a unit have or will have the support of the British people. You know, I've been hearing that a lot, that there's so much skepticism in them in general, and especially regarding Camilla. And yet there's been a lot more acceptance than there used to be, because at one point they considered her the most hated person in the UK. This is years ago, before they were, you know, made the most hated, like royal, I guess. But everything's changed and she's been more accepted. But I've been talking to my girlfriend who's in Harrogate, and she's like, oh girl, no, So I think you're right regarding that. So there's going to be about 2,000 dignitaries there. Now, Queen Elizabeth had about 8,000 people inside, as well as George VI. He also had that many people there. So he's going to have 2,000 people. Charles wanted it to be a little bit stripped back, but they're still spending $100 million on this event. You know, I mean, you know, they're spending that kind of money. So, and then, so it's going to be, you know, dignitaries, but also his siblings, Princess Anne, Andrew Edwards, as well as his son, Prince William, and daughter-in-law, Catherine, their children, and then also Camilla's kids, also Lord Cholmondeley, Nicholas Barclay, and Ralph Tolmach. So he'll have sort of like his lords in waiting or whatever. Now, we don't know yet. We still don't know if Harry is coming with Meghan. We don't know. We know that the king wants them there. They want Archie and Lilibet to also come, but you know, they may not come to the ceremony itself, but that's the big deal. So elsewhere, representatives from UK Houses of Parliament, the Church, the Commonwealth, all around the world will likely be in attendance. This reportedly includes the UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, Prince Albert, and Princess Charlene of Monaco, although I heard that they might be getting a divorce. I'm just saying, but that could be a rumor. And Japan's Crown Prince Akashino and Crown Princess Kiko. Now, Biden is not coming, but he said, hey, I'll send Jill. Other world leaders, such as Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor will be there. Okay, so why is his coronation so late? Why does it take so long? These are questions that people ask. They want to know. Hold on a second. I don't think Charles, long live the king. There you go. So while Charles is already Britain's monarch, a suitable amount of time must pass before his official coronation. And so for Elizabeth, for example, she was crowned on June the 2nd, but it was 15 months after her father had passed away. So it was a long time. This is typically so a monarch is afforded, and the nation is afforded enough time to really mourn the loss of their predecessor. So considering they had 15 months with George VI, 8 months is really not that long. Will Charles wear the same crown as Queen Elizabeth? So Charles III will be crowned with the St. Edward's crown. Now, this is interesting. It's a 17th century solid gold headpiece that has been integral to the coronations over 350 years. Now, it was made for Charles II, but then this goldsmith, Robert Viner, in 1661 replaced it with a crown that was melted down in 1649, because I think the crowns and all of the royal regalia was actually stolen and lost from the tower, and then they had to replace them. So it's solid gold. So it's really, really heavy. So when he's wearing it during the service, he only wears it for a hot minute. It has it has rubies, amethysts, sapphires, garnets, topazes, and tourmalines. I mean, it's loaded with jewels. And then it has this velvet cap, and it's gold. It has a fur band, which, you know, he's all about, like, you know, vegetarian, like being a vegetarian and plant-based, which we'll talk about in a second. But it does have that. The crown was worn by the queen, very heavy. So what happens is that they change the crown. When he leaves, he ends up wearing the imperial state crown, which was for the coronation of George VI. So that's the general information about what's going on. And then I think you know that we did a video and a live regarding the actual event. There's like 6 steps to the coronation. One is called the recognition, where he shows himself to like 4 different parts, you know, north, south, east, and west. And then he has this oath, and then he has this anointing. We're going to talk about the anointing oil in a second. And then also he has, you know, the crowning. The queen has her crowning, and then they have the processional out. So Here's the big news. Queen Camilla. Everybody always argues about this. Okay, let's look at some questions. Stephen, I just can't imagine Harry and his wife. Okay, let's get into this. I love this kind of stuff. I just can't imagine Harry and his wife making the long walk up front. Yeah, I think what I've heard, royal gossip, is that they won't give him an integral part. Like he will not have an integral part at all. So, in other words, he is going to, be second. Give me a second because my 17-year-old daughter is texting me, and I'm like, hey, not now. Call dad. Call dad. I have 7 children, so that happens sometimes. 7. They're from all over the world. 2 by birth. We've just had we have an amazing family, but she's 17 and she's somewhere right now and she needs a ride. Okay. So as monarch, so Stephen, sorry, I was interrupted. I don't know. It's like they say that the king really wants them there. I would love to see them there, but also, they want to see them there, but they don't want them to be center stage because of all the drama. So I agree with you. It would be so awkward. It would be like, ooh, awkward, like totally awkward. But here we go. So as monarch, Charles is head of the church. And I think having his mistress turned spouse as queen consort is not a good move on his part. Well, I think that was basically the queen's stance. I think she was like, oh no, like I'd rather have him, have her be princess consort like Philip was, and she didn't even attend the wedding. She wouldn't even go to the wedding because of all of this. So, I agree with you. Okay. So let's read about this. This is a big deal. I've had so many arguments here, not arguments, but I've just been trying to explain things. And I've had people say to me, I'm leaving, I'm unsubscribing because you called her the queen rather than queen consort. So as a review, every queen consort in history is still called queen. Every queen regnant, the reigning queen, is still called queen, not queen regnant. Every dowager queen, when somebody dies, is not, you can refer to them as queen dowager, but the official title is queen. So we all knew that she was going to be queen. Yeah, and I agree with this too. They all say, she's queen. She's the queen. So, but she officially had her official thing here. Buckingham Palace released the coronation invitation, and they're all like, whoa, now it's official. She's the queen. The intricate invitation, which is printed on recycled card and includes an illustrated border of wild flowers. You guys, we're going to break down the symbolism. The coronation of their majesties, King Charles and Queen Camilla. Okay, so in this article, which is CNN, they actually do agree with you and many of us that it's kind of hard for a lot of people to forget. Princess Diana said, I'd like to be the queen of people's hearts. And that is like, oh gosh, that just stuck with so many of us. It's stuck with so many of us. And it is hard to kind of forgive that, right? It's hard to forgive and forget that. So it's still an issue. And for my friends and the people that I talk to online that are in the UK, it still is somewhat of an issue. Just to be honest, TBH, this is what it looks like. Okay. So we're going to kind of go into the symbolism of this a little bit. If you guys don't mind, I think I'm going to make it bigger so you guys can see it, and myself much smaller, because this is, I find it fascinating how everything has so much symbolism in it. But let's break it down real quick if you guys are interested in this. So if you head up into the top left, let's talk about it. The top left-hand corner is in the invitation is the King's coat of arms. And what that represents, he was given that coat of arms when he was 13. Everybody gets their coat of arms. Kate has one now. When he was heir apparent at the age of 13, it's known as the heraldic achievement. As with many crests, as a shield, it's guarded by a lion, which typically represents England. The shield is guarded by a lion, which typically represents England, and a unicorn, which represents Scotland. In the bottom left-hand corner of the shield is the harp, which represents Ireland. Under the coat of arms are the Latin, which means God and my right. So in the top right-hand corner, let me see what Steve, he will have to walk maybe in front of the Abbey, which is a long walk and a long time for unaccepting eyes. Trivia, the anointing oil back in the time, at the time of Queen Elizabeth, I believe made, yeah, we're going to talk about that, Stephen, about the oil, because I just did a short video on it and my mind is blown by what we're doing with the oil at this point in a good way. Okay, in the top right-hand corner, of the invitation is Queen Camilla's coat of arms, which was granted to her in 2015. At the time, the insiders at Clarence House said the decision to have separate coat of arms for Camilla followed efforts by the royal to ensure that she's not seen, here we go, as the replacement for Diana. So the central shield of Camilla's crest is flanked by the royal lion meaning supporter, meaning she's supporting the king, from the prince's arms on the left, while on the right is a boar taken from Camilla's father, Major Shan's arms. Now we see this creepy green man, which I'm exaggerating. I'm not saying he's creepy, but like, you know, the creepy green man on the bottom is one of the many features of the coronation invitation that signals newness and a new dawn. It is from folklore and represents rebirth and regeneration and the cycle of life that begins every spring. The green man may also be a nod to the coronation location of Westminster Abbey, which also features a carving of the symbol on, so the same symbol on top of the facade of the building. According to a tweet posted at Westminster Abbey, the green man is often considered a pagan symbol, but carvings can be found in Christian churches across Europe for ages. Okay, Royal League of Nations agenda on track with coronation. Ooh, I don't even want to get into that right now. The coronation is May 6th. Okay, so now, guys, I mean, I find this stuff fascinating, but, you know, not everybody will. Now he has the flowers of the UK. He has the, you know, shamrock for Ireland. He has the thistle for Scotland and the daffodil for Wales. And then he has the Tudor rose. Then he has a robin and a wren. The robin and the wren, which sit on the golden sea, which, by the way, is a little kind of creepy for me because it represents, obviously, with BC, because that's his name, but it also represents Charles and Camilla, which then gets me to think again about Diana when she accidentally opened up one of her wedding shower gifts, and it was something that Charles was sending to Camilla, just saying. But the robin and the wren sit on the sea on the top of the invitation in the middle of the page. There's symbols of rebirth, but they also could be considered a tribute to lost loved ones. Typically, the wren symbolizes rebirth, immortality, and protection following Queen Elizabeth's death. The wren could also be considered a nod to King Charles's beloved mother, whose legacy lives on. And the robin is often considered a sign of those who have passed away. So in a nutshell, this could mean a representation for both of them. Okay, so it is a potential nod of the value. So we have the bluebells now. In a potential nod of the values of King Charles will hold dear in his reign. The blue bells represent humility and everlasting love. So everlasting love, AKA Prince Harry. Like, what are you guys thinking of the symbolism? I think it's nice. The symbolism touches upon values mentioned by King Charles in his first address to the nation. He said, and wherever you may live in the United Kingdom or in the realms and territories across the world, and whatever may be your background or beliefs, I shall endeavor to serve you with loyalty, respect, and love as I have throughout my life. My life will, of course, change as I take up my new responsibilities. Then there's these forget-me-nots. Okay, that might be getting boring. It might be like, okay, one of those classes. Then the Norfolk stamp, because the person who oversees the entire coronation is the Duke of Norfolk, Earl Marshal Edward Fitzalan Howard. He inherited the role, which has been an hereditary title since 1672. Can you imagine? He also organized the funerals. There's strawberries here that represent the Queen. Queen loved having strawberry jams and strawberries. And then there's these wild animals. The lion represents England, of course. So there's all this. There's the bumblebee and the daffodil and the ladybird. And then there's an acorn that is actually part of Princess Catherine's coat of arms. And then the lily of the valley is another nod to Queen Elizabeth. And then the golden seas that we see. So, it's just very symbolic. Okay. A great reference to to Crown Gladys. Okay, so we're gonna look at something else now because we were talking. Oh yeah, so here's the thing: we thought that Prince Louis was a given. Didn't you guys think that he should go and he was planning on going? Now they're saying, oh no, I don't know if he should really go. I don't think he's behaved enough. So now we don't know. They're going to play it by ear. This invitation, which I think is adorable, was the invitation that Charles had when he was 4 years old. His mother and her staff made up a special invitation just for Charles. My opinion should be, if you wanted to invite Archie and Lilibet, although they're so little, I don't know, to the actual coronation, they should make an invitation like this, even if it's just for the coronation parties. Make that for the grandchildren. It would be great. It's tradition or whatever. But this, it is what it is. So, and then this was Charles. One of my favorite pictures. He saw his mother's coronation and now his own. William will as well, but George is going to be present at most likely, we believe, like 3, his dad's, and probably obviously his own. Hopefully that'll happen. But this is a reason why they don't know about Louis. They don't know. They do not know. So let's talk about the oil. Let me see. Stephen, you were talking, looks like a wedding invitation. Be nice to compare Queen Elizabeth. Oh yeah. It would be nice. It's very colorful. I thought it was the children's invitation at first. I thought it was the kids' invitation. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this oil because I just made a video about the oil. It was a short video, and it's fascinating to me what he's done. Okay, so this is a cursory conversation about the anointing oil. There's one part of the ceremony, and Stephen, you brought this up too, where it's very sacred. It's so sacred that they usually don't even show it on television, but it's this whole anointing thing. He takes off the big robe and then they anoint him with oil. So typically the oil goes from monarch to monarch. So they keep it in this spot. It's holy oil. It's protected. It's only used for that. I agree. Okay, hold on. Liz is saying, I don't think Charles is going to have anywhere near long reign given his current age. I've never been a fan of Charles, but I like Camilla even less. Yeah, I mean, I think people, and even Diana said back in the day that she thought that William is going to make a better king. That is, kind of the consensus with a lot of people. Well, of course, and he's 70 something years old. I can't remember if 72, 74, something like that. So let's talk about the oil because this moved me. It moved me. Okay, so there's 3 days of celebration. So a symbolic ritual took place in Jerusalem where the holy oil that will be used to anoint the new monarch and the queen consort was consecrated. So the chrism oil, which will be used to anoint his majesty, has been consecrated in Jerusalem Friday, March 3rd. So that was a month ago. Buckingham Palace said in a statement, the ceremony took place at 10 a.m. at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, with the oil consecrated by this Patriarch of Jerusalem, his Beatitude Patriarch Theophilus III. And the Anglican Archbishop in Jerusalem, the Most Reverend Hassam Narom. The oil was created using olives from 2 groves at the Mount of Olives, one at the Monastery of Mary Magdalene, which is the burial place of Prince Philip's mother, Prince Alice of Greece. It's been perfumed with essential oils, that was what got me. Because, so Princess Alice, she was royalty in Greece, married to Prince Philip's father, Andrew. So she was known as Princess Andrew and Prince Alice. Okay, so she went through a horrific life. They had to leave Greece, and then her and her husband split up. They kept thinking she was crazy because she kept, I don't know if she was speaking in tongues, seeing angels, doing whatever. She was like on another realm. They took Princess Alice to this sanitarium in Germany or something. Again, I'm just going off of memory. Freud did experiments on her. He thought that because back in the day, they thought the uterus was alive and that it like traveled throughout your body and like women were crazy. So Freud, who was so cruel, wanted to basically, he felt he could zap her delusions out of her by giving her all of these kind of questionable experiments and then burning out with x-rays her uterus. Okay, so what does this have to do with the Mount of Olives? What does it have? That's King Charles' grandmother. So what happened was she eventually got out, but she couldn't have any more kids. She never really reconciled with Andrew, but during the time of the Nazi invasion in Greece, she was pulling in like Jews into her house and playing dumb like she didn't know where they were. She was saving the lives of people, started up a whole nunnery, whatever, but people still thought, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed because she's walking around with this habit, starting her own, nunnery or whatever. But then she decided when she was going to die, she wanted to be buried at this church at the Mount of Olives. So that is the context. He needed new oil because he wanted it to be plant-based, and George VI's oils had been destroyed. And he was like, I'm not going to use Queen Elizabeth, my mother's oil. I want a new oil because she was using some animal intestine oil or whatever because that's what they do. It was kind of gross. So he's doing this entirely new oil from the Mount of Olives, sanctified or consecrated by, I think, this Greek priest. And it's from the very garden where his grandmother is buried. And obviously it's very special for people who love Jesus and who are Jewish, like the whole night, Judeo-Christian thing. So he was able to tie all of that in. So the oil now is, I think it's special and I think it's thoughtful. And I love that kind of thing. I will say that to me, I don't know if they, are blown away by the fact that it was something taken from where his father's mother was buried, but I think it's really special. I don't know what your opinion is, but so I also think, okay, let's take some questions. Okay. So Stephen, you can explain this to me because I don't know. Park Davis oil was for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. They still have a bottle and I've seen photos of it. The ingredients didn't have such symbolism. Yeah. She had it by, I think it was the Duke of Gloucester or something. He, blessed it or whatever. And, what I was reading yesterday, it was that they take sperm whale, like, I don't know, like something from the gut of sperm whales and small animals. Like, is there an animal called a cervet? Like, it's like this monkey squirrel type animal, but that was in those old oils. And so he was like, I think I'm not going to do that. Plus, this is more symbolic and sweet, but I would like to know what that other oil is like. I'd like to, check it out. Okay, here we go. I don't think that Charles should have given Archie a little bit of titles. Yeah, I don't know if I'm confused about that, to be honest. I feel like maybe they were given the titles just because of lineage, okay, everybody was getting the titles. But just like Princess Anne, she didn't take them for her kids. Just like Edward was like, no, thank you. Harry could have declined. And of all of the royals, we would have thought that Harry and Meghan would have declined. But instead, out of the blue, even with all, let me destroy, let me talk about the royal family on Oprah. Let me talk about it on a Netflix series. Let's talk about it in the book. Let's bring up all of the stuff. Let's have a lawsuit implicating the the royals and the media. But by the way, our kids are prince and princess. Now there is an angle for that to say that, well, they are born, they are in the family, they're in the line of succession. So I don't know. I mean, I tend to agree with you, but it does reward bad behavior. It's interesting, but wonder the line item costs on this less money. It's so much more because of the security. So it's like, let's scale it back. But by the way, it's $100 million. I don't know. I'd like to see the accounting sheet as well, but it's got to be a fortune. Okay. So this I thought was interesting because their charity sounds slightly sketchy. I'm just going to be honest. The charity sounds a little like sus, as we like to say. So apparently they work 1 day, 1 hour a week, which is not unusual for people who have their own nonprofits. But what's kind of weird is that apparently they brought in like 13 million and they're like, yeah, but we allocated 3 million. So the question is, when everybody starts to do the math, it's like, okay, you allocated 3 million, redistributed out in grants and donations, but it was 300,000 to the World Central Kitchen, 250,000 to Harvard for expanding a fellowship program at the Institute of Rebooting Social Media. I don't know. I have to let that one soak in because I'm not sure what that means. 125,000 to the NAACP to fund Archwell Foundation Digital Civil Rights Award, and 50,000 for the Loveland Foundation to provide mental health services. So that doesn't add up. So the question is, okay, what the heck? Like, what really is going on with their nonprofit? And there's been a lot of people that's saying, I know what's going on. The money's going somewhere, and yeah. But still hold them. Hence the Royal League. You and I can have a side conversation. Harry seems to be controlled by Meghan, and it's just sad. Yeah. I mean, he could have a million times said, nope, I don't think that makes sense. I'm not going to do that. I mean, it's okay to argue with your spouse. Maybe in his case, it's not, but it's okay to like maybe have a difference of opinion and argue and say, nah, I don't think so. I don't think that would be good if I call out my brother and my father and I don't think it would be good if I called Camilla the evil stepmother or whatever, even if she thought it. Okay, the line for the oil. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how much that would be, but I'm sure a lot of it's, they're financing the church. They're financing the church in many different ways. So, okay, guys. So any other questions, please do subscribe to Hot for History. Like my videos. I'm going to take some more comments and questions because this is my favorite part when I do a video. I like to see what they're saying. Those charity tax return numbers seem so artificial and seemed almost rounded. Yes. Which is like, no, like what in the world is going on? I feel that there's so much irony in Harry because it's like, I'm escaping so I don't have to deal with the media, but I'm going to use the media, but then be used by the media. I feel like he's so tied into it. You sign into a contract, you're so obligated to have to spill the beans, even if you didn't want to. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think you say, I understand him not wanting his wife to go through this with his mom did, but I feel like Harry uses that as an extra excuse for their crappy behavior. Yes. So this is exactly the point, Kelly, is that we all sympathize with him. He was always our favorite. Everybody liked him the most before we knew enough, before we saw him, before we really, really saw him doing what he's doing. And we can understand, like, okay, I understand he's got a scar. He's got wounds from any, who wouldn't hate the media? How hard can it's got to be hard to watch Camilla, because I'm a child of divorce too. I will just say, you don't forget that as you're older, no matter how much therapy you go through. You're like, that should have been my mom as the queen. I mean, it would be hard to watch that. I'm just saying, hard to watch that. But you're adults, you kind of gotta like suck it up, buttercup. Like on the other side, this is a man, the king, who really wants his sons to be there. He's not going to live very long because he's older. I mean, maybe you have 20, maybe he lives to be 100, but that's still not so much time, right? I mean, I can, from personal experience, my dad, I mean, he had mental illness and my parents were divorced. And yet I'm so grateful that in his later years, I spent time with him to get to know him, to be able to reconcile things with him, to be able to hash things out. Like I would never trade that. And this is a moment that he will not get back. He will not get it back. He will not get it back. So Stephen, you say 9 million left. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Many have wounds, but he sort of feels entitled to money. That's the thing. I think, Kelly, mentioned this thing about him. And when I was saying he was so likable, I think that's the thing that for me personally shocks me the most, is that I didn't understand how entitled he was prior to this. He didn't read as entitled to me until all of this. He's so oblivious to the real world. I keep calling it rich people's problems, but he'll try to sometimes tug on your heartstrings, but it's like, I'm sorry, we cannot relate to that. 90% of us cannot relate to what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. So I feel like he's a contradiction, like such a contradiction. And in hindsight, all the things that he says that he would have wanted and needed could have been accomplished by him maintaining his relationships. I'm not saying he had to stay working there, but maintaining positive relationships, even if you had the fight in the beginning to figure out what your role was and what you wanted to do in order to make it so you have some control. You could say, I want to live in California with my wife, but I want to still be a part of this. I want to support you and I'm going to support you. And so stay in communication with it rather than let's have like a whole thing about it. This is not the time when the king, I mean, let's talk about it. I'm sure he's very strong, but the king loses his mother, loses his son. It's not easy being king. I mean, it's also, but there's a lot of stress that's going on. So, and just some regular family get together. His father is becoming the king. It'll be pretty sad if he isn't there. Exactly, Kelly. So anyhow, that's my thoughts on the matter. I would like to see them there. But he keeps making these mistakes where you're like, oh, okay, that's another one. It changed with marriage, as I believe it is her. And then that's the other thing. I'm sorry, which one of you said, okay, he didn't have to, he could have said things that, gone against Megan. I think it's Megan. Exactly. He could still marry somebody, but still have his own opinion and be like, oh no, we're not going to do it that way. Or listen, this is me. Like even before I got married, he could have been like, I will always be a royal, like, it doesn't matter how far I run. This is me. This is my lineage. And it's a very beautiful lineage too. It's complex. It's hard. It's going to be hard for us to adjust, but I will support you, saying that to his wife, but we can't do X, Y, and Z. We can't just bail out of here and start to take my family down. It doesn't make sense. But he wasn't mature enough to do that. And even his own therapy, all of the problems, maybe he's going through his therapy and finally dealing with his pain from his childhood, but he could have done that like many of us do it by not having a camera on us while we're talking about our drug problems and how we felt and how we lost our virginity. It's like nobody taught him the benefit of subtlety or the beauty of maybe keeping it's sort of like a child who was never given sugar and all of a sudden you let him into Dylan's candy shop. And he was just like, I get to express myself. Like that's what we see with Harry. And I think he's going to live to regret the extent with which he went. But at the same time, there's also some positive guys because there are some things that needed to be brought up regarding media, right? And the royal family. And they are a family. So I think Meghan thought she could be okay with quitting Hollywood, but soon found out she wasn't and willing to do anything to keep. Yeah. it's hard when your identity is, I'm the star, and all of a sudden you're not the star. And yet, let's be honest, she was either trading being a star or being a princess. Like, I'm sorry, or a duchess to be official. I mean, it's not like they're saying be a star and then go and, like, I don't know, like just disappear. She was going from being a star to being able to have an entire staff for when she is like in charge of the Commonwealth. And like, she could have been so creative, and she was doing a fabulous job when people loved her, and she was doing all of these great things. She had a food kitchen for these women there was a fire. Like, she was doing some really great things. So you could say, I can leave Hollywood because look at what I have now. Let me tell you something. I've been in the entertainment business a hot minute, not at her level, but there would have been a lot more consistency, I think, in many ways. However, the one downside is that you really don't probably have as much of your own money. You have to like wait for somebody to tell you, okay, here's your house. So that is something that, but I don't know. There's ways around it. All right. So guys, thank you for all of your support. And I am Deanna from Hot for History. I will be back because even though this is what you need to know for the coronation, it's not all you need to know because there's going to be more coming. And thank you for all of your support. And we will talk to, yes, I have 7 children. I did not birth them all, but I will talk to you guys later. Bye.